Hello, BookTube. This is Weekly Reads. I'm doing an earlier Weekly Reads than normal because I may be watching The Demon Toddler again today. For those of you who don't know, The Demon Toddler is my youngest niece, the youngest sibling of the 4 children of the apocalypse. So I started my reading week with The Garden of Evening Mists by Twan. This novel begins in the early 1990s and is about a Judge Teo who retires from the bench at the beginning of the novel. She returns to the Cameron Highlands region of Malaysia to revisit the Japanese garden that she visited in the early 1950s. She came to the Cameron Highlands to visit this garden and to ask the creator of this garden, the gardener Aratomo, to create a Japanese-style garden for Judge Teo's sister, who died in a slave labor camp run by the Japanese during the Japanese occupation in World War II. Aratomo refuses, but he does offer to bring her on as his apprentice so that he can teach Judge Teo how to create a Japanese-style garden herself. And this relationship, this connection is formed because Aratomo's neighbor, Magnus Pretorius, is a tea planter who is an associate of Judge Teo's father. So over the course of nearly a year, Judge Teo works under the tutelage of Aratomo, and they become closer and closer. And over the course of the novel, both in the 1950s as well as in the early 1990s, more and more of Aratomo's mysteries are explored, as well as the shifting perspective of Judge Teo. I loved this novel. It was amazing. I really loved how Tan maneuvered and revealed Judge Teo's personality and history and the changing it was really good. I very much enjoyed this novel. Excuse me. One of the problems of filming in the morning is I tend to have something in my throat that bugs me to heck and back. So the second book I read this week was The Ghost Road by Pat Barker. This is a novel set in the waning days of World War II and is a split narrative between two people. The odd numbered chapters are from the perspective of a man named Pryor, who was invalided out of the army and sent to a convalescent hospital for mental issues as well as physical issues. At the beginning of the novel, he is deemed fit for duty and returns to the front to fight the final battles of World War I. The even-numbered chapters are from the perspective of one of the doctors who worked on Pryor's case, the psychologist and anthropologist Dr. Rivers, who parts of his narrative feature him working with current patients, but he constantly goes back to a period before the First World War when he was a anthropologist working on the island of Eddystone in Melanesia. Now, The Ghost Road is the third and final volume of the Regeneration trilogy, which features these two characters as well as the war poets Siegfried Sassoon and Wilfred Owen. So I did not know that when I picked this novel up. You don't really need to read the other two novels to enjoy this one. It very much stands alone. But I do want to read the other two and then come back to this one and see how the whole trilogy works. But I really enjoyed this novel as well. Even if the narratives largely start to diverge outside of the thematics of at the end, but it was really good as well. So I ended my reading week with the 79th volume of One Piece by Eiichiro Oda. So let's kind of give a quick overview of One Piece because, I mean, this is the 79th volume, so there's a lot to cover. So One Piece is the story of a young man named Monkey D. Luffy, this guy here. When Luffy was a child, he was the mascot of a pirate crew captained by red-haired Shanks. On the red-haired pirate's penultimate visit to Luffy's home village, Luffy ate a devil fruit. A devil fruit is a magical fruit that grants its consumer superhuman abilities. In Luffy's case, it granted him rubber-like abilities. Think Mr. Fantastic of the Fantastic Four, although even more powerful. If the two were to fight, Luffy almost certainly would win. I mean, also this is manga, so a lot more boom in manga typically than in superhero comics. But anyway, so 10 years later, Luffy sets out to become a pirate himself. His early adventures see him building a pirate crew and gaining a ship. And his goal is to find the One Piece and become king of the pirates. So the story arc that I've been reading for what seems like forever now is the Straw Hat Pirates, the name of Luffy's crew, have entered into an alliance with a pirate named Law to take down one of the four emperor pirates, Kaido. To do this, they first form an alliance on Punk Hazard to take down a mad scientist named Caesar, who is supplying artificial devil fruits or researching into artificial devil fruits for an individual called Joker. Joker is revealed to be Don Quixote do Flamingo, a villain, this dude here, who wears many hats. He is introduced initially as a warlord of the sea, basically a privateer for the government. He also has extensive criminal contacts as Joker, primarily being the supplier of artificial devil fruits for the pirate emperor Kaido. He is also most relevant for this story arc, the usurper king of Dressrosa. Even though the Don Quixote family were the original dynasty of Dressrosa, since they are one of the celestial dragons, when the world government was formed, the Don Quixotes gave up their throne in Dressrosa to move to Marijoya or Marijoyzy, and a new dynasty took their place. However, Don Quixote's father left Marijoya and took his wife and children with him, giving up their celestial dragon status. So Doflamingo decided at 10 years before the series begins to conquer Dressrosa for himself. Anyway, so the plan kind of hits a snag, and things go to hell in a handbasket. And the Straw Hats-in-law find themselves allied with gladiators in an arena, the Revolutionary Army, and individuals who have been disappeared by the Don Quixote family. Pretty much they all come together in an alliance to overthrow Doflamingo. And after many battles across many fronts, the final battle has been decided. Luffy versus Doflamingo. And that fight goes on way too long. And it finally wraps up in the first 3 chapters of this volume. And then after that is some sort of picking up the pieces chapters, and then kind of previews for what's coming up, including the first full introduction of Kaido at the end, who will become a major antagonist in future volumes. So, yeah, so I enjoyed I rather enjoyed this volume, even though it did lag a little bit, as I think the fight should have kind of wrapped up a bit earlier. And the final 2 chapters of this volume don't quite make a whole lot of sense. Although, I mean, of course, there are previews for upcoming storylines. And, but the one thing I did enjoy was Fujitora, one of the new admirals. His appearance was really nice. So, yeah. And I really enjoyed how he handled the government and the Marines' failure in Dressrosa. That was very nicely done. And his fight with Sakazuki or Akainu. So anyway. Okay, so that's what I read this past week. What will I be reading this forthcoming reading week? Well, today I'm going to start on The Remembered Soldier by Anjet Daanje, translated from the Dutch by David McKay. This is the 3rd novel I'll be reading for Military May, which is a booktube event in which people read books about the military or about war. I decided to read 3 works on World War I. Started with In the Absence of Men by Philippe Bisson, and then The Ghost Road by Pat Barker, and we'll wrap up with The Remembered Soldier. I had originally intended to read Chronicles of a Village by Nguyen-Hoang Hien, translated from the Vietnamese by Quyen Nguyen-Hoang this past reading week, but I only had 1 day left, so I decided to read One Piece instead. So I will get to this after I finish The Remembered Soldier. Now, there has been a glaring absence in my reading month this month, and that is manga. My April manga haul has not arrived. I have received an email from Book People saying that the order it. It's shipped. It is currently, I think, hanging out in a post office in Austin. Probably will do that for the rest of the week, probably over the weekend as well, because that's kind of what happens. Is sometimes it might take the post office a little bit of time to actually pick up the package from book people, but it usually spends a few days, a weekend at various post offices in Austin before eventually getting to Fort Worth and then working its way to me. So my thought initially as I was making my reading plan was to read the 12 volumes that made up my April manga haul on the weekend when they come in. However, I think this forthcoming weekend, I would like to read The Harmony Silk Factory by Tash, because I don't know necessarily if I hold this off until the end of the month, I would be able to finish the novel before the beginning of June. So I'm going to go ahead in this forthcoming weekend, not this coming weekend, which is for The Remember Soldier, but the next one, I'll be reading The Harmony Silk Factory. So that's my plan for not only this next reading week, but the one after, and for the rest of the month. So anyway, BookTube, that's all I have for now. I need to go and take out some laundry from the washer to put in the dryer and upload this video. So until I see you again next week, which should probably begin with a manga haul. Yeah. So until I see you next week, thank you, BookTube. Have a great rest of your morning and day and weekend, and see you soon.